Hello there. Welcome to this session on how to prepare and pass the PMP exam on your first try. Please let me know in the chat if you can hear me clearly. I will, in the meantime, begin the presentation. Give me 1 second. All right, so this session is all about how you can prepare for the PMP exam so that you can pass it on your first attempt. Now, as we get into the material, there are two things that we are going to focus on. One is that why you should get PMP certification. Why is it so valuable at this time in this age? And the second thing is how you can become a PMP holder. So what is the process that you have to go through as you prepare for the exam, or even before that, when you start thinking of applying for the certification, how do you get approved and all that information. But the thing that we are going to focus more towards the end of this presentation is that how you can achieve your certification on your first try. So the agenda for today is that I will give you a quick introduction of who am I, what is my background, why I am here today, giving you this introduction. Then we are going to look at what is the value that PMP brings? Like, what are some statistics around that certification that tell us that it is of good value? Next, we are going to talk about some information around PMP, and that information includes what is the format of this exam, how do you become eligible for PMP exam, will you be tested on the exam. So all that information, so that you have a better familiarity with the whole certification process as well as the exam itself. Now, it is possible, whether you are live right now or you are watching the recording of this session, that either you are very new to this, like you were just starting the PMP process, or you may be halfway or somewhat on your journey towards preparing for the PMP exam. So some of the information that I'm going to share with you, you may already be familiar with, but I think it will be a good refresher. So the basic information I'll try to go through faster, but I'll focus more on the prep itself. All right, so next we are going to talk about what are the biggest mistakes that we notice that PMP exam takers make and how we can avoid them. And also, what are the learnings that they share with us? So I'm going to share with you 5 key learnings that we hear again and again from PMP exam takers. But once we have this information, then of course we can move to developing our own PMP exam prep strategy. Now, what I mean by that is you will have an opportunity to understand what are the things that you need to do or need to take in order to have the right mindset, in order to prepare for the exam and then pass it on your first try. All right, so let's begin. My introduction first. My name is Daud Nasir. You can also call me David. Daud is the same as David. I have a Master's of Applied Science degree in construction management. My specific research area was schedule risk analysis. So I got my Master's of Applied Science from University of Toronto. It's a long time ago, of course. I have several journal publications, international conference presentations, and also have a published book on PMP exam prep. I had the opportunity to be the subject matter expert reviewer for PMBOK 5th as well as 6th edition. So a great learning opportunity for me, and also a great great way to contribute back to the profession, which is one of the things that will be expected from you as you become a PMP certification holder. Now, my experience has been quite widespread. So industry-wise, I have been in IT, in consumer product groups. I have experience working on projects in automotive industry, healthcare, real estate, construction, oil and gas, in the training business, which I've been in for last 10 years, as well as in nonprofit. Function-wise, it has been IT, finance, supply chain. So different types of projects. You can see, all those name here, all the functions here. Then in terms of organization type, I have exposure to, I've worked in public sector, private sector, small to very, very large multinational global firms, and worked on projects that were global projects in nature. So quite a wide experience. Why I'm sharing this with you is because that has actually helped me to develop a very broad and in-depth understanding of what project management is and how it is played out in different industries and different functions. Now, in terms of certifications, yeah, I do have PMP certification. I got my PMP in 2003. Then I have a professional Scrum Master certification, certified Agile Project Manager, Lean Six Sigma Black Belt, and several other certifications that I hold. In terms of credentials related to trainings and coaching, I have delivered over 5,000 hours of training personally, and if I do a count, I mean, this would be over 2,000 people that I have delivered this training to, and 400 plus organizations served. But the key credential that I hold, and which I'm really, really proud of, is that I have never received a rating that has been below met expectation, right? So 0 ratings below met expectation. So most of those have been exceeded expectation, and that is what I'm really proud of. I feel good about it. I guess one of the reason was that I always ask for feedback, and that's what I ask here too. That as you watch this, please feel free to put in the comments what you feel like, if you have any questions, and even if you have some suggestions to improve this session itself. I would love to hear from you. All right, so let's move to our first topic now, which is the PMP certification. What is the value it brings, and what are some key statistics that stand around the PMP certification? Now, PMP stands for Project Management Professional. It is the most popular project management certification in the world. It's kind of considered the gold standard in project management. There are over 1 million certified PMPs in the world. So you can see how much high in demand it is by employers, right? So employers are looking for, if you pick up job posting, you will see that they talk about what the job postings will be asking, if it is for a project manager job posting, it will be asking you to have a project management certification, a PMP certification. Would pretty much be required now. And if it is not a project management related posting, then it still requires or asks for some sort of project management training or certification. So it is very, very popular. This PMP certification is internationally recognized, and it is offered by Project Management Institute. Now, in terms of value, how do we look at value? It really depends on an individual, right? So value for me might be different, how I perceive that, and for you it may be different. For somebody else it may be totally different. But from my study, from my understanding, I have figured out that there are few reasons why people get PMP certification or any other certification. So some of those can be grouped under intrinsic needs. So intrinsic needs are those needs that come from inside, right? So they are not driven by factors outside of you, for external factors, right? They are internally, that you have this desire that comes up. And one of those is that you want to build your skills, right? And that is why you want to get PMP certified, because you want to build your skills and you're going to get skilled in different things. Or it could be that you want to move into more advanced project management. You are a project manager and you want to take on projects that are highly complex in nature, and that is why you think that maybe PMP is the right thing for me to do and I should take up this certification. It is also interesting that some people just want to do this certification because they love challenges, right? And they've heard that PMP is a very challenging exam. It's a very difficult exam. And that's why they just want to, have this inner kind of desire to do something difficult, and they want to take up this certification. I mean, it's not that they don't need it, or they will not benefit from it, but just that something that is really driving them would be they love challenges. And then there are few that just enjoy learning. They will always be looking for new stuff to learn. Doesn't matter, if it relates directly to their own work area, but they just want to keep learning. So these are the main ones. But then extrinsic ones, the ones that are driven from outside, would be that you are looking for a job and you see the job ads are asking for PMP certification, and that is why you want to get certified as PMP. And I can tell you that there's so many students that come to me just for this specific specific reason, that they want to apply for jobs and the jobs are asking for PMP certification, so they want to get certified. Then there are few that the boss may have told them that if you get PMP certification, I can get you a promotion or a salary increase. Now, frankly, I'll tell you that the promotion, like, it's not automatic. It doesn't happen immediately unless your boss or your organization has this, so your boss tells you, or your organization has this policy that if you have this certification, you will get a promotion or a salary raise. And same way for making more money, again, it kind of comes in the same category, that typically you will not see an immediate jump in salary as soon as you get your PMP certification. But over time, I'll show you on in next slide how much difference does it make. So long term, yes, absolutely, you will make more money as a PMP certification holder. But immediately, unless, again, if your boss told you that get certified, I'll give you a raise, it won't happen. Then some people are driven by this desire to have a prestigious certificate, right? Because they see others will give them respect because they are certified, right? And that could be one reason why you want to get certified. So it is important that for you that you understand why you are going for PMP certification, because it helps you when you get to the prep piece, you know why you are getting it, and that will give you the right motivation. All right, so one other thing, see, about PMP certification, we are talking about the value of PMP certification. So few things we need to remember, that when you are certified as a PMP, now how much you will be able to apply it depends on an individual. I had most PMPs actually improve their performance, no doubt. But then there are few actually who do get the certification, but they are not good at applying the knowledge they have gained, right? So you may encounter a PMP in your life who is certified project management professional, but is a lousy project manager, and that happens. But these are not too many cases, right? So we are not going to take it as the norm. So rather, we will look at that. Yes, when you get certified as PMP, your professionalism goes up. Why it goes up? It's because you have spent time learning new stuff. You have put in the effort to know the best practices out there around project management. You are applying that knowledge. You have converting that knowledge into skills to become better at delivering projects. So your performance, of course, will improve. It also shows that you are competent in what you do, right? So these are the things. And PMP certification itself, it gets updated all the time, right? So every couple of years, 2 to 3 years, you will see an update that happens. Like there was an update in January 2021. So this is not a certification that is out of touch, or is just a fixed in time certification that you just get it. It takes in the new knowledge that is available, the trends in project management. The certification gets updated all the time. Now, in terms of job related stats, so Forbes, for example, mentions that there is an 18.6% increase in median salary, and that was from $114,000 to $136,000, right? So that's the jump, about 18% jump because of PMP certification. Now, of course, it's not immediate jump, but it's that they saw that people with the same experience over time, how much they earn, right? The ones without PMP and the ones with PMP. The global knowledge says that PMP is the 5th highest grossing certification, and the average salary is about $143,000. CIO magazine says that PMP is one of the top paying certifications in the world. Now, Project Management Institute, they have done several surveys, but one of the biggest survey that they have done is the one where they collected data from 37 different countries. And that survey shows us that the PMPs earn in United States, the PMPs earn 25% higher than non-PMPs, and that is the comparing their median salary, which means half of them earn more than that and half are less than that. Also, when we look across 37 countries, so overall PMPs earn 23% more, so which is not that far. So 25%, 23%. So that's about 25% is the salary increase that you will see between PMP and non-PMP over some period of time, and which can be huge. Just imagine if you earn $100,000, that means it's $125,000. So $25,000 per year, and the investment in PMP it's probably a thousand or a couple of $1,000s at the most, and about a month or 2 months of prep. That's it. One other important stat that PMI mentions is that by 2027 there will be 22 million new project management related jobs that will be created, and that's significant because there is already a shortage of qualified project managers in the market. And so 22 million more jobs, that is a lot, right? So there is a lot of demand that we see in the near future. All right, so this was just some statistics and what is the value of PMP certification. So now we move to our next topic, which is that we are going to look at how do you become eligible for PMP? What are the requirements? What is the content covered in this certification, right? So when you go for this exam, take this exam, what exactly will you be tested on? Then what is the format of this exam and what the application process looks like? And I'll walk you through this application very quickly. I have created several videos which you can see on my channel, and if you haven't subscribed, I would ask you to consider subscribing to my channel. There are several videos, short videos, that go into detail of some of the stuff we are talking about here. Okay, so how do you become eligible for PMP? Well, there are 3 key requirements. The first one is the education requirement. You need at least a high school diploma, that is grade 12 education. If you don't have that, then you are not eligible for PMP certification. So minimum high school, but you can have an associate degree, a bachelor's degree, a master's degree, or a doctorate degree, doesn't matter. Now the second requirement, which is the experience requirement, this one depends on your educational background, right? So if you have a 4 years bachelor degree or a higher degree, then you need 36 months of experience leading and managing project. Right. So leading and managing project, one project or more than one project, doesn't matter, right? But you must have 36 months of experience. Now, if you do not have a bachelor's degree, you have less than a bachelor's degree, like a high school diploma or an associate degree, in that case, you need 60 months of 60 months of experience leading and managing a project. And that 60 months or 36 months has to be within the last 8 years. So the day you submit your application, you can only go back 8 years to provide that 36 months or 60 months of experience. Now, the third requirement is that you must have completed formal education in project management. And that has to be 35 hours, minimum 35 contact hours of education in project management. So typically, if you are preparing for, when you going for PMP exam, you will maybe take a course, right? If you have not done a course before. So if you take a PMP exam prep course, that will provide you the 35 hours. And many people do that actually. What they do is they take the course, so they get both benefits. One, they get their 35 hours of education, and they are also preparing for the exam. But other than that, you may get that these hours from from different methods. Like if you've taken a course, like for me, for example, I did my bachelor's in civil engineering and then my master's in construction management, right? So I had courses, especially in the master's level, I had courses that were very specific to project management, and so I had tons there. And then I also did some professional courses, and so you will have those opportunities. If you don't have it, just think of it, taking a course for exam prep, and that will give you the hours. Okay, so Then, so these are the three requirements, right? So you must have a minimum high school, you should have the experience based on your educational background, and 35 hours of formal education in project management. Now, what is covered in the exam? The exam covers three domains: the people domain, the process domain, and the business environment domain. 42% of the questions will be from the people domain, 50% will be from the process domain, and 8% will be from the business environment domain. So I'm going to give you just kind of a hint of what type of questions might come. I'm not going to show you the questions right now, but rather what will you be tested, right? What is expected in each of these domains. So if we take the first one, the people domain, it's all about how you're going to engage with people, how you're going to manage people, right? So it will talk about how do you manage conflicts, negotiate agreements, how will you build, lead, empower, and support your team, and similarly, how will you empower and support and engage your stakeholders, how will you mentor them. You also have to ensure that you have provided proper training. So stakeholders and your team is properly trained. So team is trained so that they can do the work. And stakeholders are trained so that when they understand how they have to be engaged with the project, and also whatever you deliver to them, if they are the users, if they are the consumers, the customers, they will be able to use that product or service that you are providing them, right? So, and that is something that will be your responsibility as a project manager. So, and building a shared understanding, that is very important, because you don't want people, especially on larger projects, you don't want people to start going in different directions, right? And have different expectations. And the result will be that something that some people will think at the end your project was successful, others will say, no, it failed because it didn't deliver the value I was expecting from this project. So what we want to do is that as a project manager, we should be building a shared understanding among our stakeholders, including our project team. So that is something that you will be tested from the people domain side. Now, when it comes to the process side, it's all about the project management processes, right? So it starts with establishing the project governance, which means that how you're going to plan, what kind of reporting structure might be there, which approach you will use. Would it be the agile approach or a predictive approach or hybrid approach for your project? So selection of the right approach, that is something you are expected to do as project manager. Then you have to plan and manage scope, schedule, communications, your budget, your cost management, resources, quality, even risk. So all of that is something that is tested in the process domain. Then as part of execution or as part of managing the project, you will have to manage communications, you have to manage issues, you have to create artifacts, ensure these are they are of quality, right? So I mean, they are the right artifacts and there are no errors or defects in those artifacts that being created. And you also have to manage the changes that come up during the project lifecycle. One other big aspect that you have to do is you have to identify risk, you have to assess the risk, prioritize them, and then see how you're going to manage them, and then actually manage those risks so that your project is not affected. That is something that falls under process. And towards the end of the project, you will be ensuring that knowledge is transferred to the is archived, right? So why do you want to transfer the knowledge? It's for not just for the users, right, or for the customer, but also for the future projects who can use the information that you are archiving, you are providing, your lessons learned to benefit from that. So that is the process domain. Then the third one is the business environment domain. Now that is about projects interaction with the outside world. And that means there may be many compliance requirements from the organization, even from the government, right? So you need to provide those reports or make sure that you follow the regulations, the policies, the rules. So the compliance, there are no compliance issues with your project. Also, there is a reason why your organization is investing in your project. So you have to they want something back out of it, right? So some business value that needs to be delivered, and that is what is expected from you, that you will evaluate and you will deliver business value, the benefits from your project. Now, things may change outside. So for a construction project, for example, there might be the winter weather is too severe this year, and so that can bring problems or issues for your, or risks for your project. So how you assess them and how you evaluate those changes that are happening that are outside of your control. Even there could be a law change, a regulation change, right? Or even a big change within your organization. So all those things that are external to your project that can impact your project. So you have to watch them and evaluate them. And as you deliver the project, you have to provide the support so that this change to the organization is delivered successfully and is adopted in the organization. So that was a comprehensive, I mean, I wanted to make it as short as possible, but this is what you will be tested in the exam, these three domains. Okay, all right, so we are going to move to our next topic, which is the exam format. All right, so the exam is 230 minutes long, and you will be given 180 questions to answer in 230 minutes. So 230 minutes means about 3 hours and 50 minutes, right? So that is the time given to you. Now, out of those 180 questions, 175 will be scored, 5 will not be scored. I mean, they will be scored, but they won't count towards your score. Why? Because these are test questions, new questions that PMI is testing to see how good these questions are, if they are of quality or not. But because you do not know which are those 5 questions, so for you it's 180 questions, right? Now, it used to be that all the questions were multiple choice, but that's no longer true. Since January 2021, you will also see questions that are matching questions. So you will have few terms on one side, few on the other side, and you have to match them. Multi-response question, which means that out of 4 choices, there may be more than one choice that is correct. Multiple choice, we know that 1 out of 4 is the typical one, or 1 out of 3, or 1 out of 5. But for a PMP exam, it was 1 out of the 4 choices that is correct. But multi-response is that you may end up having more than one choice correct, right? So you have to identify 2 or 3 choices. And hotspot would be something like a graph or a map where you have to click and point out your answer on the graph. And there might be few fill in the blanks question. Now, what we are hearing is that most of the questions are still multiple choice questions, right? So, but then as you prepare for the exam, you should be familiar with all these types because you don't want to be surprised, right? Now, during the exam, these 230 minutes, you will be given opportunity to take 2 breaks, and these will be 10 minutes long breaks. The first break will be when you finish your first 60 questions, you will be given an opportunity to take a break. If you select that, then you will have a cool down period, which is that you will be able to review these questions. Because once you come back after the first 10 minutes break, you cannot look at the first 60 questions, right? That's not going to happen. Same way, when you get to 120 questions, you will get an opportunity. Now, it's up to you if you take the break or not, but I always recommend that, yes, you should absolutely take the break, take a refresher, stretch, take a visit to the washroom if you feel like, but then because it refreshes you and it helps. And this is what people have told me, students have told me, that, yeah, it does help. So that's the exam format, right? So 180 questions in 230 minutes, 175 will be marked for, and different types of questions, and you will have 2 breaks available during the exam. Okay, so next we look at what does the application process looks like, right? Now, in order to apply for this certification, first you have to actually apply to become eligible for this. So you just can't say that I'm going to take the exam. You actually have to first register for the exam, and the registration requires that you go through certain eligibility criteria and submit an application, right? So how do you do that? Go to pmi.org, go to the certifications, at the top and select PMI. So if you go to PMI.org and to PMP under certification tab, you will get to the screen that you see right now on the side. Now, if you go to this right side, you will see apply for PMP certification. So click continue and it will take you to this the form. Now, of course, if you are logged in already, if you're not logged in, you will have to create an account, which is free to create. So you will create your account with PMI.org and you will get to this spot where you can enter the education information. So here you will identify your educational background, what is the degree that you have, and then also your professional education, which is the project management education at the bottom. Once you've done this, you go to the next page. You can see your next, once you press the button, you will get to the experience section. Now in the experience section, there's quite a bit of information that you have to enter. It's not that complicated, but just that it requires a little bit more deeper thinking, and you may have to prepare it before actually before you submit, right? So it may take a couple of sittings, or you may do it offline and then just paste it in there. So the first part at the top would be you would put down the project title, your organization's name, the job title that you held at that time, not the role but the job title, right? So role is that you may be working as a project manager, but if your title is systems analyst, then that is what you're going to put in there. Which functional reporting area, where did you report into, what is the primary focus of the organization, right? So if you are a automotive, working in the automotive sector, so that will be your organization's primary focus. Which methodology or approach did you use? So that is where you say predictive or the agile or the hybrid. What was the team size and project budget? So that is the basic information that you're going to put about application. But then next you have to go to the bottom piece, which is the project description, right? So if you go here, it says that you have typically, like, you are expected to put in about 200 to 500 words, but focus on what was the project objective, what was the outcome of the project, what was your role on the project, and what role and responsibilities, of course, and what were the deliverables that you worked on or created. Now I have a video that I created going into details and give with an example of how to write the project description, right? And I will put that link in the description here after we finish the live session. So take about 200 to 500 words to write this description, but focus on the project management side. Remember, your experience has to be leading and managing project. So if you did some testing, don't talk about which test I performed, or how good the testing was, or how complicated was it. That's not what they're looking for. They're looking for what are these project management leading and managing activities that you did. So you wrote a charter, then write down that I wrote a charter, I hired my team, I motivated my team, which techniques you used to do for that, how did you analyze risks. So those are the type of things that are expected that you will write in your project description. So once you have written this description and you have enough hours, not hours, but rather enough number of months of experience, which is 36 or 60 months, then your application is ready and you can submit your application. And hopefully it will be approved. In most cases it does, but yeah, there is a possibility that your application may get audited. So if it happens, don't worry about it. Just provide the information that they are asking for. Typically, the information will simply be some contact numbers for people who can vouch for you, saying that, yeah, you did work on those projects, that kind of information, right? All right. So that was the application. As I said, there are a couple of videos that you should watch if you want to get into more details of how to go through this process. Next, we are going to talk about what these exam questions look like, right? So I'm going to give you a few examples, 3 sample questions, and I will walk you through those sample questions. So let's begin with our first one. A project manager is analyzing the relationship between the consumption of project funds and the physical work being accomplished for such expenditures. In which project management process would this be done? So where is the focus in this question, right? So if you look at the question, it is asking you that what is project manager doing? Analyzing relationship between consumption of project funds and physical work being accomplished, which means, what does it tell you? It tells you that project is ongoing right now. So when we say, if you look at the four choices, we say, is it determine the budget? It can be, because that is part of planning which happens before we start executing, before you start the work. But if you are doing a comparison, if the project manager is doing a comparison between how much work has been completed and how much money we have spent, that means work is already going on. So it cannot be A. So we reject A as a choice. Estimate costs cannot be, because that's also part of it. I mean, you cannot determine the budget if you haven't estimated the costs. So both A and B are out. If we look at C and D, manage cost, there is no process called manage cost. The only process that we know of is control cost. Between these two, it's control costs. And that is the right choice, the correct choice, control cost. And that is the purpose of control, to compare the budget, to compare your funds against what has been accomplished, so that we can see if we are going as per plan, or if we are spending more, or if we are spending less than what we actually budgeted. So that is one question. So I hope you get a bit of idea, what is it that you will be tested on. Let's look at another sample question. This question says, number 2, a project manager needed to shorten a project schedule. He decided to apply crashing, a schedule compression technique. Which of the following activities would not be an example of crashing? Now that question is straightforward. I mean, it's not complicated. If you are well prepared, it's very easy question. But here is one thing that I've seen over and over again, that students make this mistake. They look at it, well, which of the following activities would not be an example of crashing? Bringing in additional resources. Yeah, that's crashing. That's crashing. Oh, so A must be correct choice. What did they miss here? They missed the word not. You're not to select what is crashing. You have to select what is not crashing. Now, because they are familiar with, they know crashing, and there are things that happen when we crash a schedule, they make that connection, and in a hurry, they forget that there is not. I've seen this error made by students who are just starting the preparation, or the ones who do not prepare well. So once you go through several hundred questions, you will stop making these type of errors. So the two words that you must be careful about is using a not or except. This except means not, right? So don't go for that. Look for the other one, the opposite one. All right, so let's look at this question again. Which of the following activities would not be an example of crashing? Well, which one is not an example? We know that bringing in additional resources is an example. When you crash a schedule, you can have more resources brought in to squeeze the schedule, compress it. Reducing project scope, not really. That probably is the correct choice in this case, because that is not crashing. But let's look at the C and D. Paying to expedite delivery activities. Absolutely. You pay your contractor, your seller some extra money so that they can deliver faster. That is crashing. Or approving overtime, asking your resources to work extra hours. That is crashing. So A, C, and D, all three are crashing. But reducing project scope is not crashing. Reducing project scope means that you are cutting down the scope. And that is neither crashing nor the other one, which is called fast tracking. So that was question number 2, right? So see, in this question, if you are familiar with the term crashing and you have practiced that you don't make the not mistake, and also you understand how we can achieve crashing and what will not be crashing, then this would be a very easy question to go through. Let's look at question number 3. The development team identified an improvement during the sprint retrospective that will reduce time spent on testing. The dev team wants to implement the identified improvement immediately. To which artifact will the team add this improvement task? So if you know the agile process, if you understand the Scrum method, you will be able to answer this question. But if you don't, then of course this will feel complicated. Okay, so let's break down the question. Development team identified an improvement during sprint retrospective. When does sprint retrospective happen? It happens at the end of a sprint. So you have a sprint running. You will start the sprint with a sprint planning meeting. Then you start going through daily Scrum meetings every day as you do the work. And towards the end, you will have a sprint review. And the last thing you do is sprint retrospective, the purpose of which is to identify things that we can improve on. So they've identified an improvement during sprint retrospective that will reduce time spent on testing. Now the development team wants to implement this identified improvement. That's great. Yeah, of course, they identified it. They feel that this will help them a lot and they want to do it right away. So what would be the right way to do it according to the Scrum framework? What will be the right approach to do it? Where do you add this improvement task? Would you add it to product backlog, sprint backlog, improvement backlog, quality backlog? Now, if you are aware of Scrum method, you will know right away that there is nothing called improvement backlog and quality backlog. That those two do not exist, right? So you are left with just two choices. Either it's product backlog or sprint backlog. Now, many will think that because team wants to do it right away, so it makes no sense to put it on product backlog and then take it from there and put it in sprint backlog. But the thing is that when you go through sprint planning, you have to select what you're going to take up in this sprint that you're starting or you've just started. And who prioritize the things, who prioritize those tasks or those stories, you can say, right? Or those improvement things or defects that you have to fix. It's the product owner that is the one that leads it. Product owner that is going to run it. So now if you do not add it, if you want to put it directly to sprint backlog, you're basically saying that, hey, Mr. Product Owner, we are going to do this. We don't want your opinion on that. And that is not right. So the best place to put it is product backlog. We're going to put it on product backlog. Now, if it is high value, of course, the team will have a chance to, as they go through prioritization, that they can present it, that this is very important. It will help us. And the product owner will also see it as importance and will rank it higher in priority, importance, and it will be selected and put it into sprint backlog. But the place it goes to is the product backlog. Now, what I have done here is I have actually given you a run through of the Scrum method, Scrum framework. And that is where your focus has to be, that you need to understand what that framework is. You need to understand how agile, what is agile thinking and why we need to go through this process. When it's agile does not mean that you do things haphazardly, right? Or just randomly. The focus has to be, there is a process that you still need to follow because it brings value to what you are working on and what you're going to deliver. So these were 3 sample questions, which I hope that will give you some idea what this exam is testing you on, what it looks like. All right, so let's move to our next topic. What are different types of questions? Well, I can tell you that you will mostly be tested on process flow. There are formula questions, but what I've been hearing this year since January 2021, there are usually 1 to 3 maximum formula questions. So there used to be like 15, 20 questions, but not anymore. Questions that come as negative questions, which means that instead of asking you to which one, it's asking you which one is not, right? So it's a negative question that may be asked. So you have to be familiar with those questions that are based on principles, right? So they're not testing you on anything like a technique or a tool or what is the input, what is the output, but rather on a principle of project management. They could be lengthy scenario questions, few of those, but there might be very lengthy questions. So you have to practice of how you can take on those questions, how you can attempt those questions. Then questions with 2 or more conditions, questions that have 4 answers, but these are very long answers and they have multiple conditions. So you have to develop strategy. How are you gonna select those quickly? Because you really can't spend more than a minute and few seconds on a question. ITTO questions which have almost disappeared, but there still might be, and they are mostly based on the process flow rather than just saying that what is the output, what is the input. There will be theoretical questions, of course, but as I said, most questions will be case scenario questions, situational questions that will be asked. And sometimes you will be tested on definitions. So remember, these are different types of questions that you end up seeing in the exam. So practicing all these types will help you to be ready for it. Okay, so next one is the learnings that we have heard or we get from the previous PMP exam takers. What are the biggest mistakes that PMP exam takers make, and what are the most shared learnings? So the 3 biggest mistakes that PMP exam takers make: lack of process flow knowledge. They do not understand how process flow, what is the project management framework, and that is the biggest thing that can fail you if you don't understand that. Your whole prep focus should be to understanding it. Don't worry about answering questions correctly when you are practicing. That is not important at all. Most important thing is that you know the stuff. If you know the stuff, you will be good to go. So 3 biggest mistake: people do not understand, students do not understand the process flow, how it works, what is the project management framework looks like, and how process is linked to each other, and they get too many questions wrong. Or sometimes they do, but they do not do practice, right? So they do not practice enough. The problem is why practice is important, because just knowing the knowledge is not enough. You need to be familiar with the type of questions, as I just showed you a few examples. If you are not familiar with that, if you don't understand how the questions are being asked, and you can save time, what I'm saying is that you won't be able to save time. You may spend more time than you should on each question. And the result will be that you may have to rush through the last few questions because you're running out of time. And the other thing can happen is that you know the stuff, but you may start making blunders. Why? Because you never practiced. And the third mistake I've seen is that some people, what they do is they take a sample test and they look at their score. All right, it's not that great. All right, so I'm going to do another test. Still not that great. I'm going to do another test. Oh, I scored well. That's great. Another test. And they never focus on, well, what were my mistakes in that first test? And why did I make those mistakes? And then look at those. Go open up the PMBOK guide, open up your notes. If you have a video course, go to that video, the video that relates to that topic. Watch it again, see why did I get it wrong? Where was my mistake? And they forget that. They don't do that. And the reason is that they have done 2,000 questions, but they're still not ready for the exam. So these are the 3 biggest mistakes. What did you get out of these 3? It's all about prep. That's it. Smart prep. If you do smart prep, yeah, you will nail this question, the exam. Now next, I'm going to share with you 5 most shared learnings by previous PMP exam takers. So one that comes up again and again, and what I've done here is I'm just sharing some quotes, famous quotes, so to represent those learnings. A goal without a plan is just a wish. So you need to have a plan. If you don't have a plan, if you're just haphazardly studying, you're not developing knowledge, right? And so to develop knowledge, you got to have a study plan. Haphazard preparation will be a waste of time. So that's the first learning, that have a plan and follow the plan. Now, plan doesn't mean that you say, I'm going to do this right now, and you create a plan of next 8 weeks and you have to follow the plan. No, plan will change. Like I say that every week you update the plan. Maybe you thought you're going to take 8 weeks, but after 2 weeks, you have already realized that you are actually doing quite well. You don't need 8 weeks. You may be done in 6 weeks, right? Or the other way around, you may need 4 extra weeks. But the thing is that whenever you are studying, you are following a plan, which maybe get updated several times in a week. any fool can know. The point is to understand, right? So do not go to memorization or cramming stuff. That will not serve you well. Focus on learning the stuff. Focus on understanding the relationship between processes, as I mentioned earlier. This is where the key is, right? How, if I ask you a question, share with me the life cycle of a change request. So there is a change being proposed. What will happen with that change? So if you can walk me through that, first this thing will happen, this, and you go through that whole process of how a change request is processed, or what happens to a change request, what are different things that can happen with the change request. So you know the process. Or if I say, well, you identified a risk, now what? And you can actually walk me through the whole process. And you don't have to walk me, actually, you just explain to yourself, this is what's going to happen with the risk if it is identified. This is what we will do with that. A report, how do you create a report? What happens to a report? What will happen if there is a problem with the report? All of these questions you should be able to answer. So I'm going to address that as we get closer to the end. So understanding the process flow is extremely important. The third one is, in learning you will teach, in teaching you will learn. This is something I actually personally experienced a lot, that when I teach something I actually learn better, I understand it better. So one of my suggestions would be that participate in discussion forums. They are on Facebook, they are on LinkedIn, and here some of the PMP exam prep trainers, they do coaching sessions, and I will be doing that too. So you can join those sessions because that gives you an opportunity to talk about this. In the chat session, somebody asks a question, you can have your opinion there. Don't worry if no one is reading it. That's not your point. The point is you are sharing. If somebody reads it, great, they will understand it. But if they don't, at least you got a chance to explain something, and that will help you to polish up your own knowledge, right? And that is what the key is. And I can tell you, I can guarantee you that this way you will learn a lot, and very quickly. Fourth one is, perseverance is the hard work you do after you get tired of doing the hard work you already did. Now it seems like complicated, but review all the answers to sample test questions. Practice makes you perfect. Now I'm going to share with you a strategy towards the end. But the key here is that if you've done a test, it's not about just doing the test, but also going back and learning why you made a mistake, as I mentioned earlier, how you made a mistake, and we are going to cover up for that. If you didn't know the stuff, let's read that stuff. If you knew the stuff, but you still made a mistake, and then you analyze why I made this mistake, I shouldn't have, and then fix what is wrong. The way anything is developed is through practice, 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 and more practice. Nothing can replace extensive preparation. Review, review, and review again. And the strategy I'm going to share with you as my last thing is all about taking this approach. All right, so let's talk about now exam prep strategy. There are three things that are important here. One is that you need behavioral commitment, then you need to plan for your studies, and then you have to execute that plan. Three things: behavioral commitment, study planning, and execution. When we talk about behavioral commitment, there are three things. One is to have a can-do mindset, that yeah, I can do it. If you are doubtful, then you are already losing on this front. The second is that you must have a compelling motivation. If you don't have a compelling motivation, you may lose interest right in the middle. When things feel tough, or you have been studying for days and you feel that I really not getting anywhere, you may start to lose motivation if it is not strong enough. And the third one is creating a tunnel vision. Be focused on the task. One of the big challenges that people face, especially working professionals, is to stay focused on your studies, right? So what they do is, like, right in the middle, or sometime they will lose focus. Why? Because there's so much work they have to do on their job or the business they are involved in, or the project they are working on, that they cannot continue with this with their prep anymore. So having this tunnel vision is important. So let me just address this a little bit in more details. What is your fear? Like, what do you think can happen? Is it that you feel that PMP exam is too difficult? And do you think, I don't think I can pass this exam? Or that No matter how much I prepare, I just don't get it. So you've read few stuff, few chapters, maybe you looked at few notes, and you think that, oh, you know what, I'm really not getting anything. It's too complicated. It's too difficult. I've heard most candidates fail the exam on their first try, and that is what is stopping you. That is your fear. Now, all these are just fear. We have talked about what are the big reasons people fail, and you can see all these fears are connected with that. Exam too difficult. Well, if it is difficult, let's prepare for it. It won't be difficult anymore. Why can't you pass the exam? Haven't you passed any exam before? Like, if how you are at a stage where you are a professional, so you must have done. I mean, if you've done high school at a minimum, you have passed exams. So why can't you do this one? What is stopping you from doing that? No matter how much you prepare, I just don't get it. Which means that either you are not putting in enough hours, or you're not reading the right stuff. Because others have done it, so you can also do that. And same way, most candidates fail the exam. Yeah, quite a number. I mean, there are no published data on how many people fail the exam, but yeah, we know that many people fail the exam. But that shouldn't be something. But also many people pass the exam, and we know how many have already passed the exam. So can-do mindset is that I can do it if I strive for it, if I work for it. And that is something you have to convince yourself. I can do it if I work for it. And this second piece is important. I work for it. I can't do it by just thinking about it. That's not going to happen. You have to work for it. Remember, over 1 million people have passed the PMP exam. So if they can do it, so can you. And you have to repeat it to yourself. Yeah, if 1 million people have done it, what is so special about them? What is it that I am lacking? So if they can do it, I can also do it. So yes, I can, and I will pass on the first try. Repeat it. Yes, I can, and I will pass on the first try. This is the can-do mindset, because all you have to do is plan for it and prepare for it. Right? So first thing, can-do mindset. Yes, others have done it, I can do it. And all I have to do is plan for it and work for it. Now, the second piece was behavioral commitment. Piece was compelling motivation. Remember those we saw earlier, the one that you see right now? What is your motivation? Which of these is really driving you? Is it promotion, job promotion? Is it money? Is it respect? Or is it something internal? You just want to build skills. So identify what is your compelling motivation. Is it strong enough that you will be able to put in the effort that is needed? That is important to know. You need to know it. So how would you evaluate that? Think of it this way, that how strong is your motivation? Are you willing to devote about 120 to 150 hours in the next 2 to 3 months? Now, I'm not saying that you will need 120 to 150. Please don't take it that way. Some people need less, some people need more. But from my experience, I've seen about 120 hours is kind of the average or even the median where people will mostly fall. So you may need less than that. You may need only 50 hours, who knows. But let's plan for about 120 to 150 hours and think of it over 2 to 3 months. You can always squeeze it to a shorter time period. Are you willing to do that? And that will be what you will cover in your study plan. That how you're going to have these many hours identified, taken out of your schedule, day to day, week to week. Tunnel vision is you need to be laser focused on your target, and your target is PMP. And there should be nothing that comes in between. You cannot say, oh, I don't feel like doing it today. You still do something. Well, if you're not mentally there, well, let's read up something. At least you're reading something. You may not get too much of it, but still do a bit of. And again, we come back to the study planning. If you have a plan in place, you will force yourself to follow that plan. And that is what laser focus is, that there will be things that will be thrown at you, that come at you from your personal life, from work life, but you have to be focused. You will not let anything derail you. It's the same mentality that you need to have as a project manager, frankly. I mean, over 25 years of my experience, and I can tell you the biggest thing that I see as the difference between somebody who is a professional project manager and who is not, is that they have a tunnel vision. They are focused on the objective of the project. This is what I have to achieve, and they're going to work on achieving that. They will just continue. So anything that is coming up, they will bypass them, work around them, solve those issues, and get to the target. And that's what you have to create, tunnel vision. How do you create tunnel vision? For focus study, here are some suggestions. These are based on research, empirical research. So I'm not just making these up. Here are some suggestions. Identify your session goal. So whenever you're going to sit down, let's say you decided to spend 2 hours, identify what is your goal for these 2 hours, right? So don't just sit down and start looking at randomly at stuff. Identify what you're going to do in these 2 hours. Find a quiet place. Again, it depends on individuals. Some people will want to just put something in their ear. People can be distracted for many different reasons. So I don't know what will distract you. For me, if I get distracted, what I do is I'll just put the earphones in my ear, right? And put some music sometimes, or nothing than just earphones, because that stops any voice or any noise coming into my ear, and I'm focused. And on top of that, what I do is I actually read out loud, or when I'm thinking, I'm just thinking while talking. And sometimes my kids make fun of me because of that. But yeah, that's how I just create that focus, that even I can't even think of something else at that time. I don't want any thought to come in because I'm so focused. So that is something you can do. Get off social media, put your phone away, shut down all the ones if you're on a laptop. Get your coffee if you like it, and ensure that room temperature is right. You don't want it to be too hot, too cold. So these are the ones that are the suggested ways to create a focused study session. So have a can-do mindset, have a compelling motivation, and create a tunnel vision. This is behavioral commitment. Now, study planning has 3 components: learn the concepts, practice to solidify learning, and train for the exam. 3 things. In terms of study planning, we are going to look at 3 different conditions: so time, space, and material. Time wise, of course, you have to decide when you're planning that, when you're going to do that. Evening, weekend, both evening, weekend, maybe over you don't want to put in specific time, but rather you want to just do small learning. So just do micro learning, 15 minutes here, half an hour there, whenever you have time. So yeah, it's up to you, but have a plan. Identify space where you're going to do that: office, home, library, or at all different places. And then the material wise, you can get hold of PMBOK guide, Agile guide. If you're taking PMP prep course, that's the one. If you have study notes, get those, or other books that might be there, exam prep books. And of course, you will need simulated practice test to practice. Now, approach wise, you can have either self-study approach or join a program. Both approaches are there. The difference is that when you think about self-study, you have to find good material, you have to develop a study plan, you have to track your own progress, right? So nobody's doing that for you. The benefit is that totally flexible timing. You can do whatever you want, whenever you want it. So there's nothing that you are bound by it, except if you have already booked for the exam. And then it is less costly, but of course it typically takes longer time. Again, you want to reduce the time, you have to be very focused, and like the tunnel vision we talked about, and have a good study plan. And you should find some support and guidance in self-study. But if you join a program, the difference is that most material will be included. There will be guided planning and coaching. You may have live instruction sessions, which are very helpful. Recorded video sessions can also provide you the material that you need. It is a bit costly option, but it is time savers, right? It saves you time. And the success rate is generally very high compared to self-study. Why? Because you are taking up an approach which is like well tested, right? Others have done it, so it's been perfected, and so you will spend less time and the success rate is higher. But again, it's a choice that you have. The best exam prep method now would be that this is something that is a proven method, right? And I've personally done it. I recently created a video on this where I've explained the method, but let me address that in a few minutes. All right. So the idea is that you do a holistic study. Holistic learning is that you are going to watch all the videos that are there, or watch the videos, read the books like PMP guide, Agile guide, your study notes, maybe exam prep books. Your objective here is just to have a broader understanding of everything. Now, this is a time where you learn a lot, right? But you're not testing anything. So once you have done through this first round of study, then you take the full length practice test. But once you finish the test, the only thing you're going to look at is how many you got right. So let's say 180 questions, you got 35, 40 right. But you're not going to check which ones you got right and which ones were wrong. And definitely, of course, you're not going to read any explanation, anything. That's it. You're done. Now you go back and start studying again. But this time you will have some idea of what was tested in this sample test. You may not remember all, but again, that is just making a connection. The idea is that you are going to start making connection. All that study material that you are reading, you need to start connecting it. And the way to connect is that first read was more of just acquiring knowledge. It's all knowledge, but it's all compartmentalized, like separate knowledge, right? And that is why your score was not that great. In the second reading, you're going to start making those connections and you're going to start asking questions. So ask yourself question. Well, this X is an input to Y. And you're going to say, well, why is X an input to Y? For example, you can say, well, why is it that issue log is an input to monitor stakeholder engagement? Can you answer this question, right? So think about it. Why is issue log an input to monitor stakeholder engagement? And look at, first answer it yourself and then open up the PMP guide or your study notes and see why is it an input? Like what is the value? What is issue log doing there? So when you do these questions, asking yourself questions, you will start to make those connections, right? So that process flow is going to start refining and this whole network of information will start to make connections. This is a method that has proven very successful. Now, the watch out here is that initially you will feel that you're not getting anything, but that's not true. You are getting a lot. So go through this once more and then go back and take the sample test one again, the same sample test. And again, you're only going to check your total score, but not which ones you got right or wrong. This time you will see that your score has gone up. I can guarantee you that your score is going to go up because one reason is that you are now familiar with the questions, but no, that's not the main reason. The main reason is that you start to understand what is being asked and you have a better idea of how process flows and what is the framework looks like. And then you go through a third time. So maybe 3 times or 4 times you take the test and then you see the answers. Now this time when you review the answers, you're going to understand what is it that you're still not getting, that you've looked at the same questions 4 times and you're still getting quite a bunch of them wrong. And then go and watch the relevant videos, read the relevant portions to understand the concept. And then take sample test number 2 and repeat a couple of times or 2 or 3 times or even 4 times. Repeat that process again. The improvement will be flatter initially, but then it will start to go up like this. And you will be ready. And this is how actually you will know that you are ready for the exam. And this is the best method of preparing for the PMP exam. Don't read a chapter, do all the questions on that chapter. You already read that stuff and just the questions that are on the chapter or questions on the one topic that you read, right? And the questions after that, of course, it's much easier to answer. I mean, this is not bad. You can do that, of course, answer the questions on the chapter or on one topic. Like if in my self-paced course, there's a video and then there are a few questions on that video. So that's good to understand the video, but it will not prepare you for the exam. Preparation comes when you start to make connections between different concepts, different things that happen within the project management framework. All right, so this was what I wanted to share. Now, if you have any question, please feel free. Please do comment. If you are watching the video afterwards, I would love to hear your comments. I will be tracking it and I will definitely answer it. If you need to ask me anything, you can just go to the website and submit the form directly if you don't want to put in here. So if you go to getxinstitute.com, I'm gonna just type it in here and go to contact us section and submit a form, provide me the information, and I will be happy to provide you any information that you need in order to help you to prepare for the PMP exam and pass it on your first try. So I hope you will find this session helpful, informative, and hope to see you back again. My plan is to bring a coaching session, so I will be announcing it soon. So please stay tuned. If you haven't subscribed, please do subscribe. There are many videos that I am posting, and I plan to post them about how to be a good project manager, and specifically about PMP exam, also how to pass this exam on your first try. Thank you all.